Hi, a lot has happened in the last 10 days. India's new doctrine of disproportionate response. There is so much information to break down that at one point a person might just get confused. What has transpired between India and Pakistan since the initiation of Operation Sindoor is nothing short of historic, nothing short of unprecedented. It has set a new precedent for the future. Any act of terror committed on Indian soil by Pakistan will be treated as an act of war by India, said the Prime Minister. But what is the importance of Operation Sindoor? What are the terror sites that we hit? What are the military infrastructure that we hit? What is the magnitude of what we have hit? All of it we are going to break down today. This is Atom, reason without rhetoric. Now, a lot has happened since May 7th, and it can get confusing because there were so many real-time updates coming in. There was a lot of breaking news items suddenly appearing and then suddenly vanishing. So I thought, let's put it all together on an escalation ladder that we're going to use as a reference for the length of this video. This escalation ladder will describe how the timeline really functioned, how the important updates came in, and how the entire episode between India and Pakistan went from the terror attack at Pahalgam to finally the ceasefire on May 11th. Now, on April 22nd in the evening around 4:30 p.m., the news finally comes in that innocent tourists, as many as 28 of them, have been marked for their religion and have been shot point blank in Kashmir, in Pahalgam. Clearly, the nation was outraged. Kashmir was going back to normal. There was this tourist season which was witnessing good economic returns for the people of Kashmir, and yet something heinous as this had transpired. The people were shocked, the nation was enraged, and rightfully so. Immediately, the Home Minister left for Kashmir to take stock of the situation. The week following April 22nd, the nation was in mourning. There were images coming out from the final rites being performed of the victims of Pahalgam across India. People did not know really what to say because this kind of a terror attack, one knew that it was cultivated, it was curated entirely in Pakistan, but what to make of it, because Kashmir was going back to normal and tourists started suddenly fleeing Kashmir, people started suddenly cancelling their bookings and whatnot. So the week after Pahalgam, there was this time for mourning where the nation really reflected on what had hit it, and this was the time when people were suddenly asking, what is the Prime Minister going to do? But on April 28th in the evening, the opposition party, one of the principal opposition of parties of India, puts out a graphic. It shows the Prime Minister, or the caricature of the Prime Minister, without its head. Now, there is a time for politics and there is a time to come together as Indian citizens. This party chose to come forward as a political party first. Why? We don't know. But that graphic, that also enraged people. Everyone after the surgical strikes and the air strikes in Balakot trusted the Prime Minister to respond to Pakistan. But here was the Congress IT cell putting out the image of the Prime Minister, his caricature without a head, and writing Gaia. What were they trying to convey? What was the message they were trying to send? Now, the week following April 29th, the IT cell, of course, had deleted that graphic, but the week following April 29th until the evening of May 6th, the Prime Minister was continuing his meetings with the senior officials, be it people from the forces, the NSA, the Home Minister, the Defense Minister. Everyone was sort of on the edge. What was the government going to do? On the evening of May 6th, I remember, the question was again that will Prime Minister risk a long summer ahead of him, because responding to Pakistan immediately would mean escalation, because Pakistan would also have enough time to respond back, and then no one would know how would the escalation spiral into something that might be uncontrollable. So the question before the Prime Minister and before the people of India was simple. There is a long summer ahead of us. The first spell of snowfall at the higher altitudes is at least 6 months away. Will the Prime Minister risk the response, or will the Prime Minister wait it out? This is the message, this is the idea that people went to sleep with on the night of May 6th. But then on May 7th, or rather on the night of May 6th, for those who were up until late night, the news came in of Operation Sindoor. By 4 o'clock early morning, it was clear that the Indian state, the Indian forces, had hit Pakistan deep inside its territory, targeting 9 terror camps, which were responsible for the Pahalgam attack, which were responsible for a number of terror attacks on the Indian soil. Operation Sindoor was to convey the message that you take away the sindoor of our daughters and we'll take away your terrorist headquarters, as the Prime Minister later stated in his address to the nation. But on 7th morning, on the morning of May 7th, almost 15 days after the Pahalgam attack, the nation woke up to Operation Sindoor. Now, what were the 9 terror sites that India actually hit? Today, we are going to break down every single terror site, all 9 of them, and what significance they hold. It is important to understand that these were not just some random terror camps. These were terror camps that had been started by the government, that had been started by the forces. In one of the press briefings, the military actually told the press that they had been studying 21 spots, but they chose to attack these lines because they had factored in the possibility that some of the terror camps would be vacated, anticipating an Indian response. So let's dive into understand why these terror camps were important, and we'll start with Markaz Subhan Allah, which is the Jaish-e-Mohammed terror camp in Bahawalpur, Punjab, Pakistan. One of the big highlights of Operation Sindoor is that, unlike before, the government, the forces, have targeted the terror camps in Punjab as well. For those who don't know, Markaz Subhan Allah, the Jaish-e-Mohammed operational headquarters, is the main center for Jaish. It is also the residence of Maulana Masood Azhar. It is the same place where Maulana Masood Azhar lost 10 of his family members. The planning of the Pulwama terror attack in 2019, that was done in this very Markaz. It was done in Bahawalpur, and Indian forces hit Bahawalpur. It is a sprawling campus spread across 15 acres. It houses at any given point almost 600 terrorists, 600 cadres of Jaish-e-Mohammed, and this is where India chose to hit. Interestingly, this Markaz in Bahawalpur was made with the support of the government of Pakistan, even at the provincial level. The money that was raised was also raised from the Gulf countries, some African countries, and also the United Kingdom, as per some reports. It had been operational since 2015. So by hitting the residence of Maulana Masood Azhar, the government was conveying a very simple message. We are coming for the terror headquarters. The second terror camp that was hit by the Indian forces was Markaz Taiba, belonging to Lashkar-e-Toiba in Murid-ke Punjab. Now, this is the alma mater of Lashkar-e-Toiba, as they call it. Over 1,000 cadres or 1,000 potential terrorists at any given point are trained here in different courses. Ajmal Kasab received his intelligence training here for the 26/11 attack. Even David Coleman Headley and Tahapur Rana, who was recently extradited to India, received their training here. This is where the operations of the Lashkar-e-Toiba are concentrated. It is one of the most important training centers right in the heart of Punjab. And one fun fact about this place, it is spread over 82 acres, but Osama bin Laden, worth $10 million, his financing worth $10 million, had aided the construction of a mosque and a guest house within this facility. The Indian forces hit it this time. Now, the third terror camp that we hit was the Tehra Kalan facility belonging to Jaish-e-Mohammed in Shakargarh district in Narowal, Punjab, Pakistan. This has been also suspected to be the main launching site for the infiltration of terrorists into Jammu and Kashmir by Jaish-e-Mohammed. It is located in the Shakargarh Tehsil of the Narowal district in Punjab, and it is located inside the premises of a primary health center in the Tehra Kalan village. so as to conceal its real purpose. Now, this is very common. Across the LOC, on the Pakistani side, a lot of government buildings, a lot of primary health care centers that one might feel is for humanitarian purpose are actually doubling up as launch pads, as indoctrination centers for terrorists. And this facility was one of them. And the government headed this chance. In fact, the Pakistan ISI and JEM, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, have developed a network of underground tunnels in this area, which is used for the infiltration of terrorists through Jammu and Kashmir into India. It is an important launch base, and this has also been eliminated. The fourth terror site that we hit was also a launch pad concealed in a government building, in a government hospital rather. Now, it's important to understand these launch pads are often the triggers, the nudges, the catalyst when it comes to terror attacks in India. And the government went for them as they did in 2016, as they did in 2019. This one was the Mehmoon al-Joya facility belonging to Hizbul Mujahideen in Sialkot. This at any given point houses 50 cadres and 20 to 25 terrorists. So 20 to 25 terrorists are there, probably waiting to be launched into India through Jammu and Kashmir, and the 50 cadres there are trained, and it belongs to Hizbul Mujahideen. This also was taken out by our forces through a very, very precise attack. Interestingly, this terror camp is located near the Kotli Bhutta Government Hospital, just to conceal its true identity. Now, along the international border, along the LOC, many such terror camps, some belonging to Lashkar-e-Toiba, some belonging to Jaish-e-Mohammed, and this one belonging to Hizbul Mujahideen in Sialkot are there. These are very integral to the terror operations, be it the Pak ISI, be it the military, be it the terrorists, be it the terror groups. There is now a strong overlap in all four of them. This is why taking out these terror camps was very, very important. Now, the fifth terror camp we've hit is Markaz Hadith Barnala. It belongs to Lashkar-e-Toiba, and it's located in the Bhimber district of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. It is one of the most important launch pads of Lashkar-e-Toiba because this is used to launch terrorists into India in the Poonch, Riyasi and the Rajouri sector. We've seen in the last couple of years how many terror attacks were taking place in the Poonch, in the Rajouri sector. People were speculating that a large-scale infiltration has taken place. Well, this is one of the launch pads that was integral to those operations. At any given point, there are 100 to 50 cadres working there. They are being trained to probably carry out another operation against India, and 40 to 50 terrorists are usually awaiting the go-ahead to sort of infiltrate into India. The government took out this terror camp as well. Coming to the sixth terror camp we hit. On November 2016, in Nagrota, Jammu, a terror attack had been carried out. The terror accused was Qari Zarur. Qari Zarur operates from the Markaz Abbas belonging to Jaish-e-Mohammed in Kotli, and this was the sixth camp we hit in Operation Sindoor. At any given point, it accommodates 125 Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists, and at any given moment, at least 50 of them are present there. The government hit this site. This was retribution for what was done in Nagrota in 2016. Clearly, the government never forgets. The seventh terror camp we hit was a very secluded facility accessible only by a Kacha road. It has no infrastructure, absolutely nothing, and yet it is one of the oldest facilities of Hizbul Mujahideen, accommodating at any given point at least 200 terrorists. It is only accessible to a very few, and yet the government was able to take it out with the precise weapons it deployed. It is called Maskar Rahil Shahid. It belongs to Hizbul Mujahideen, and again, it's located in Kokli, in part of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Now, I remember when I was in Kashmir in 2021, and I was speaking to some members of the force Ikhwan. They told me about this one launch pad called Arth Muka. At that point, I couldn't really understand the significance of it, but now, with the 8th terror site I'm about to describe you, it might get clear. It's called the Shawai Nala camp. It belongs to Lashkar-e-Toiba, and it's in Muzaffarabad, Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. It's one of the most important camps of the Lashkar-e-Toiba, used for recruitment, registration, and training of the cadres, and it has been operational since early 2000. Just not this, even the Pakistan ISI holds training here by providing trainers of Pakistan Army to provide weapons and other intelligence training to the cadre of Lashkar-e-Toiba. Interestingly, Ajmal Kasam and all the other terrorists that were involved in the 2611 operations actually underwent training at this very camp. And this very camp also serves as a launch pad, as a stopping point for launch pads like Arth Muqam, Lipa, Dundial, and K in North Kashmir, from where terrorists infiltrate into India. So again, if you look at the overall chain of events, India was just not going for the terror hideouts. It was also going for the launch pads from Pakistan occupied Kashmir to Punjab, Bahawalpur. And finally, the 9th terror camp, also located in Muzaffarabad, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, Sidna Bilal Markaz belonging to Jaish-e-Mohammed. At any given point, 100 to 150 cadres are present here undergoing training. It's actually quite accessible on Google Earth if someone really wants to check it out. It's right opposite to the old fort in Muzaffarabad, quite near to the river. And people can see it's also used as a launch pad for sending terrorists to infiltrate India through Jammu and Kashmir. The government also went for this. Interestingly, this is a very high population density area. So to take out terrorists in such an area requires very precise attacks, and that is what the government achieved. So what was Operation Sindoor? 9 terror sites, from the terror headquarters to the terror launch pads, from Punjab to Pakistan occupied Kashmir. These were hit. The idea was simple. This was the doctrine of disproportionate response. In 2016, we went for the surgical strikes. In 2019, it was Balakot. But in 2025, after 6 years of deterrence, Operation Sindoor was hitting 9 terror sites. Interestingly, that's also to celebrate the 9 forms of Durga. Now, on May 7th, India was celebrating the success of Operation Sindoor. Let's go back to the escalation ladder we've been referencing to across this video. Now, we know what was the significance of the 9 terror sites that we bombed to hell in PoK and in Pakistan, but the battle had barely begun. On the evening of May 7th, even as Operation Sindoor's success was being celebrated across the news channels, the government was busy in a huddle. A Pakistani response was almost inevitable, and that is exactly what happened on the night of May 7th, on the night of May 7th and May 8th. 15 cities were under attack. These included Avantipora, Srinagar, Jammu, Pathankot, Amritsar, Kapurthala, Jalandhar, Ludhiana, Adhampur, Bathinda, Chandigarh, Nal, Falodi, Uttarai and Bhuj. Even the Golden Temple was under attack. Drones and missiles intercepted. This was very unprecedented but not unexpected. Addressing the nation, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif had declared a war against India. So what we were seeing was not unnatural, but everyone was now sort of accustoming themselves to the drones and the missiles that were coming in. We all saw videos on social media, on news channels, as to how RAA defense systems were taking out the drones and missiles being launched from across the border, from across the LOC. On the evening of May 8th, a day later, we had the briefing from the NEA's foreign secretary. He lashed out at Pakistan. He told how Pakistan had been a sponsor of terrorism, how India, even after sharing a number of evidences with Pakistan, did not really move things, how Pakistan actually aided the terrorists by using the same evidence that India presented to them. So the MEA, the government of India, was very clear that there was no negotiation that was going to happen with Pakistan on the issue of terrorists. But the problem here was Pakistan had attempted to attack military infrastructure and even civilian infrastructure a night before. Another long night awaited us on May 8th, and that is exactly what happened. On May 8th, one can clearly assume that social media hysteria and news hysteria really peaked. The reports that came in that day were clearly not very factually driven. But the attack coming in from Pakistan was pretty much there. Indians responded, RAA defense systems again intercepted a number of drones and missiles. But interestingly, in Dharamshala, an IPL match was called off midway, just around 9 p.m. A blackout was seen in a number of cities, but the Indian retaliation was swift. So swift and so quick that there was a front in India and a lobby in India that was already calling for de-escalation on social media. One wonders why. This question needs to be asked, that while our cities, our military infrastructure, our civilian infrastructure was under attack, not from the terror groups, from Pakistan's military, why were there some people within India calling for de-escalation? Why were they asking the Indian government, the Indian forces, not to respond to these missiles and drones that were being shamelessly launched from the other side of the border? Now, on the afternoon of May 9th, IPL is suspended, temporarily, but it's suspended. The last evening's game in Dharamshala, after being halted midway due to a blackout, clearly raises concerns amongst the spectators, amongst the stakeholders. But IPL being temporarily suspended, even if the government has directed the BCCI to do so, indicates something serious is up. But on the evening of May 9th, a very interesting press briefing happens, leaving many on social media very livid and very angry. People believe that India was giving Pakistan a route to de-escalation. It was essentially giving Pakistan an exit strategy. Just after it had hammered Pakistan in 4 different locations, it had also neutralized the air defense system in Lahore. So people were rightfully angry. People thought that Pakistan will budge back, it won't respond. But on the evening of May 9th, the drone attacks begin again. The drone attacks continue, the intercepts continue, but one interesting thing happens. Early morning, 4 a.m., May 10th, the air traffic in Pakistan begins to fall silent. Zero commercial aircraft activity, and that was the interesting part, because since the morning of May 7th until the very early morning hours of May 10th, aircraft activity in the Pakistani airspace had not ceased to exist. Aircrafts were coming and going even after the press briefing by the Indian military had stated that these aircrafts were being used as civilian shields. Simply put, Pakistanis were launching drones and missiles, and to choke air defense systems on the Indian sides, they were also allowing their aircrafts to function. Think about this. The Lahore airport, just 20 kilometers away from the international border, just 40 kilometers away from Amritsar, from the Golden Temple. There were drones and missiles intercepted over the Golden Temple, and yet Pakistan was unwilling to stop the operations at the Lahore airport, even risking international flights and foreign nationals just to put a front to their terrorist activities, to their attacks on India. That is how it was going. But by the morning of May 10th, the airspace falls silent. There are reports about jets being down over Srinagar, but those reports suddenly vanished. But in the morning of May 10th, a lot was happening. Clearly, the attack had intensified from the Pakistani side, and the Indian government had made up its mind to move up the escalation ladder. And what followed on the morning of May 10th is what's going to be our next discussion about. Where did we hit them so hard, so brutally, that by May 10th, they were happily negotiating for a ceasefire? Now that our escalation ladder is complete from Pahalgam to the ceasefire negotiation, there are 4 questions that remain unanswered. Something happened from the Indian side when they retaliated on the night of May 8th and May 9th. They hit them in 4 places, and yet the next day they were giving them an off-ramp option. They were giving Pakistan an exit strategy, and yet Pakistan did not take it. So what had India hit so brutally that Pakistan was willing to come back and retaliate the very next day? Question number 2. Why did Pakistan's airspace activity come down to an absolute zero on May 10 early morning around 4 a.m. I remember I was up and I was quite shocked to see almost zero commercial aircraft activity in the Pakistani airspace from Sargodha in the north to Karachi down south. Why did Pakistan reduce its air activity to zero just on May 10th, not on May 9th, not on May 8th, not even on May 7th? Question number 3. On May 10th, on the morning of May 10th, India hit Pakistan's military infrastructure. It hit them hard enough for the Pakistanis to almost beg, almost cry for ceasefire. What had India hit so brutally that Pakistan almost immediately was willing to go for a ceasefire? There were some news reports of Shehbaz Sharif meeting his nuclear team, but as soon as those reports came, the very next moment they vanished. But it's not about nuclear. What had India really hit that pushed Pakistan against the wall? And question number 4, was there a nuclear angle to this conflict as well, as many Western commentators have been claiming? Now, let's come to the military infrastructure that was hit by India in Pakistan's mainland, and in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. To understand the significance of what we have hit in Pakistan might answer the question that was there a nuclear angle involved, or what is a new doctrine set and how it was set. For your easy reference, on the screen, I'll put on the map of the location where we've hit the target along with a short description of it so that it makes for easy referencing. Now, the first military infrastructure I want to talk about is the Sargodha Air Base. It's one of the forward bases of Pakistan for monitoring and responding to Indian military activities in Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, especially in Siachen Glacier and Excitation regions. It's one of Pakistan's high altitude air bases, and it's also very strategically important to them given it supports deployment near K2 and other strategic peaks. As the forward operating base, it has a 12,000 foot runway. It has a capacity of accommodating heavy transport aircraft like the C-130 Hercules and fighter jets like JF-17 and F-16s as well. Interestingly, in 2020-2021, there was a joint exercise between China and Pakistan, and Sargodha was a critical base of operations. Perhaps the Chinese were thinking that they can use Sargodha as one of their operational bases. So in case of a conflict after Galwan, they wanted to factor in additional mechanism where they could use Sargodha as an operational base, which would have been challenging for India in the Ladakh region. Sargodha also lies on the CPEC route, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is close to the Karakoram Highway. So essentially, by hitting Sargodha, the Indian forces, the Indian government was telling Pakistan, we can hit you up north, we can hit you close to your strategic deployments. We do not care if the airbase falls under the CPEC route or with an understanding of the Chinese. And more importantly, we can deter your capacity or your capability to monitor our operations in Ladakh in time of a conflict. This is perhaps one of the most underrated victories of the Indian forces of the Indian government, hitting the Sargodha Air Base. Now, the next piece of military infrastructure that we hit was Chaklala, Rawalpindi, Punjab, the Noor Khan Air Base, just 83 kilometers from the international border. This base is very close to the headquarters of Pakistan's Strategic Plans Division, or SPD, which oversees the country's estimated 170 nuclear warheads. Its proximity to this critical nuclear command structure amplifies its strategic sensitivity, as any attack could be interpreted as an attack on Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. Interestingly, Noor Khan is also serving as the headquarters of Pakistan Air Force's Air Mobility Command. It manages key operations like logistics, refueling, and it also hosts C-130 Hercules, F-16s, JF-17s, all the squadrons, and it was quite essential when the 2005 earthquake rescue operations were on. Even during the US operations in Afghanistan, Noor Khan, then called Chaklala, was a key logistical hub for the US military transport, hosting 300 US troops and aircrafts post-2005 earthquake. And so India's attack essentially means that it could disrupt communications or take out, eliminate key personnel involved in Pakistan's nuclear command, especially if the strike coincides with a broader strike on Rawalpindi's military infrastructure. So when you think of Noor Khan, just don't think of it as an Air Force base. Think of its proximity to the Strategic Plans Division of Pakistan, Pakistan's Nuclear Command Authority. Essentially, hitting Noor Khan means hitting the nerve of Pakistan's nuclear command. Now, the third piece of military infrastructure that we've hit is the Murid Air Base in Chakwal, Punjab. Now, you all have been listening about the drone attacks, about the UAVs, about the unmanned combat aerial vehicles. Murid is the primary base of Pakistan when it comes to UAVs and UCAVs. Taking out Murid means taking out Pakistan's ability to launch drone attacks in India. You can leave out the smaller drones, perhaps the ones, the Turkish drones that were deployed, because that can be launched from the roof of a 4x4. But Murid is very important to Pakistan's Air Force because that allows for the launch of drones that monitor operations across the Western Front from Kashmir to Rajasthan. And by hitting Murid, India is telling Pakistan at will, we can take out your entire UAV infrastructure. That is the significance of hitting this military cantonment. Now, the fourth piece of military infrastructure that we've hit, and I would like to elaborate it on a bit because this has been the center of discussion in almost all news channels. So let's elaborate into its history also. Let's talk about the Sargodha Air Base in Punjab. Its proximity 200 kilometers from the India-Pakistan border and just 2 kilometers from Islamabad makes it a very important Air Force base. It supports missions across Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir and Rajasthan. It covers key Indian air bases like Amritsar, Pathankot and Jodhpur for the PAF. It's also capable of hosting JF-17s, F-16s, and it's also suspected to be a storage or a staging site for Pakistan's nuclear warheads on nuclear-capable aircrafts, including the Mirage 5, given its proximity to, again, Pakistan's Strategic Plans Division and its historic association with the nuclear delivery systems. This base also houses advanced radar systems and Pakistan's air defense assets, including the Chinese-supplied HQ-9 systems, one of them that India eliminated, and it is one of the oldest Air Force bases in Pakistan. But that's just not about it. Now, if I have to talk about Sargodha Air Base, it would be a grave injustice if I do not talk about the Kirana Hills, just 18 or 15 miles from the Sargodha Air Base. The Kirana Hills are widely believed to house underground bunkers and tunnels used for Pakistan's nuclear weapons program. Between 1983 and 1990, Pakistan conducted 24 whole nuclear tests at Kirana Hills, codenamed Kirana 1. The site's 46 tunnels, each 100 to 150 feet long, constructed by the Pakistan Army Corps of Engineers, are designed to withstand blast with 24 to 40 kilotons. The largest weapon India has ever tested is 60 kilotons though. It's located 8 to 12 kilometers from the PAF base, which makes it sort of capable to aid to stage the Mirage 5 and the placed JF-17s for warhead staging, and in the case of a nuclear war could also become very, very instrumental. The Hills underground complex, it covers an area of 70 square kilometer with a perimeter of 39 kilometer. It's heavily guarded, well connected by road, rail and air, and even on Google Earth, if you look at the structure, you can see a lot of bunkers, you can see a lot of water tanks, which indicate the nuclear activity that is going on. Interestingly, Pakistan's Ministry of Defense designates the Kirana Hills as a restricted military zone close to the public despite partial openings in 1995 for tourism. It rescores its sensitivity, its geological significance, and surprisingly, some people also speculated that there were earthquakes there last week. Now, the official word is that we did not hit Kirana Hills, so the official word will gain supremacy here. But interestingly, the Indians are sending a message. We are sending a message. If we can hit Nur Khan, if we can hit Sargodha, we are very well equipped to hit Kirana Hills also and take out Pakistan's entire nuclear command. Now let's talk about the fifth piece of military infrastructure that India hit in Pakistan. In Punjab, Pakistan, deep inside Pakistan, 200 kilometers inside Pakistan, and that is the Rafiki Air Base in Shorkot, Punjab. Its location allows Pakistan coverage of key Indian air bases in Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir, making it a critical node for air defense and offensive operations. Rafiki's location complements nearby PF bases like the one in Sargodha, like the one in Nur Khan, and it forms a dense network of air assets in Punjab, Pakistan's most strategically important area. It's also suspected to support Pakistan's nuclear delivery capabilities, particularly through its Mirage aircraft, which are configured for nuclear payloads. The base's hardened features like shelters, fuel storage, armament depots, and maintenance facilities further this suspicion. And Rafiki's Mirage aircraft and munitions were hit. That means Pakistan's air-delivered nuclear capability could be temporarily impaired. Now you have to connect the dots here. Nur Khan, Sargodha, Rafiki, all of them essential to Pakistan's nuclear delivery. All of them hit simultaneously. All of them. Now let's come to the Rahim Yar Khan base in Punjab, Pakistan. It's one of the closest air bases to India, approximately 30 to 50 kilometers from the border of Rajasthan. It's very important to Pakistan to monitor operations in Gujarat and Rajasthan, and it enables the rapid deployment of aircrafts to engage Indian forces in these two states. It's a very critical forward operating base. It's also known to harbor the F-7PG fighters and the JF-17 aircrafts. While not a primarily nuclear hub like Sargodha or Rafiki, Rahim Yar Khan's proximity to India makes it a potential staging point for nuclear-capable aircraft, especially the Mirage 5 or missile units during wartime. Rahim Yar Khan's location is also around one of the important trade routes of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. So again, India is telling Pakistan, we can blow up all the air bases that have nuclear delivery capacity, and we can also blow them up without caring if they belong to the vicinity of CPEC or not. Now let's talk about the Jacobabad Air Base in Sindh, Pakistan. Though it's very far from the international border, it does signify how deep India went inside Pakistan. The base is critical to PAF for counter-insurgency operations in Balochistan, where the separated groups like the Balochistan Liberation Army challenged Pakistan's control. It is 300 kilometers away from the Gwadar port, also another key CPEC hub, and Pakistan will feel the heat if India can get to the Jacobabad base as well. It harbors the F-16 jets as many other bases do. It has a 10,000 feet runway, hardened aircraft shelters, control towers, hangars, and advanced radar systems sponsored by the generosity of the Chinese. The Indians were yet still able to hit Jacobabad. Not just how far it is inside Pakistan, but even with the Chinese air defense systems, a key piece in the whole CPEC puzzle. The eighth piece of military infrastructure we've hit is the Sukur Air Force Base. India's strike on Sukur, a most modern base as some call it, signals its ability to neutralize Pakistan's advanced facilities, undermining the PAF and its vulnerability myth, its invincibility myth. This aligns with India's broader campaign to put 60% of air defense of Pakistan, Air Force of Pakistan, into complete paralysis in the wake of a war. Sukur's modern infrastructure, its F-16 squadrons, its potential UCAV's deployment make it a very high value target, rivaling Jacobabad and Nurkan and Sargodha. The Saab 2000 ERI AWAC, which is a Swedish airborne early warning and control aircraft used by PAF Squadron and Golari, equipped with radar coverage, was also placed at the Sukur Air Force Base. And that is what India hit, the Saab 2000 ERI AWACS. That is one of the most critical pieces of military hardware that Pakistan possesses, or rather used to possess. India also hit the Malir cantonment in Karachi. This hosts a critical SAM site, surface-to-air missiles, likely equipped with the Chinese HQ-9 or LY-80 systems, the air defense systems, which are integral to protecting Karachi's airspace and nearby PF bases like the Masroor and Bholari. It's integral to Pakistan's Southern Air Command, securing the country's economic, military, and cosmopolitan heartland. It's also critical to CPEC because it's very close to Karachi port, and it sort of also secures China's $62 billion investment in the China-Pakistan economic corridor. Now let's talk about the Chunian Air Base, the 10th piece of military infrastructure we've hit, one of the most critical forward operating bases, 50 odd kilometers from the international border. It enables the rapid deployment of aircrafts of the PAF to counter Indian forces in Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir. It houses munitions depots, including precision-guided munitions, and supports sustained combat operations against India's Western Air Command. And this is why it was very critical to Pakistan. It's also equipped with radar and air defense systems, the Chinese LY-80, and it monitors Indian air activity and it's very, very important to protecting the airspace around Lahore. So the air defense system that we thought was neutralized around Lahore could be in the Chunian Air Base as well. Another forward operating base that we took up. Now, if you look at the map that's in front of you, it's not only the forward operating bases that were eliminated by India, that were attacked by India. A message was being sent that while we can sort of render your forward operating bases futile, we can also go deep inside your territory, hitting as far as Sargodha, Jacobabad, and even Karachi. So it was a multi-pronged attack from Skardu in the north to Karachi in the south. Interestingly, the Defense Housing Authority, or the DHA of Lahore, was also not left behind from the Indian attacks. It hosts a Chinese origin HQ-9 surface-to-air missile site, critical for protecting Lahore's airspace, Pakistan's second largest city. Now again, it could be either in Chunian or in the DHA that we took out a Chinese-made air defense system. Also, the DHA has its proximity to the Walton Airport, which is again a PAF-managed airfield with radar and training facilities, and it also supports air defense operations and dignitary landings under the Central Air Command. Now look, some of you might feel that this is a very unimportant area. Why would you go for a residential sort of area or a cantonment sort of area? But understand, the SAMs, the air defense systems, we have even breached them in areas of significantly less importance. Now let's talk about the 12th military infrastructure we've hit, the Okara military base, located 130 kilometers southwest of Lahore approximately, and it supports air and army operations securing central Punjab against Indian forces almost 150 kilometers away from the border. This base manages munitions, fuel, supply chains for Punjab's military operations, and it shows sustained combat readiness in a key theatre against India's Western Command. Not just that, Okara military base is also in vicinity to the CPIC routes and the Punjab agricultural heartland, which makes it economically important also, and it houses, like many other bases in Pakistan, a Chinese air defense system. Indians were also able to penetrate this one. Now let's talk about the unlucky 13th military site that India hit, the Gujranwala military base. It's also home to the Pakistan's Army XXX Corps. It manages armored and infantry divisions, vital for defending Punjab and countering Indian ground incursions. So ever there is a ground movement of troops, if our troops ever were to move to Punjab in the future, this is where the action could be. And it also hosts a radar and a SAM system, including the Chinese HQ-9, supports the PF bases like Chungyang, and monitors Indian air activity. Its essential is to protect Punjab's airspace. Now, Gujranwala has a population of 2.5 million people. It's a key industrial hub in Pakistan. It's a key economic hub in Pakistan. It's one of the most important towns of the most important state of Pakistan. And even with all the air defenses, even with all the Chinese hardware, Indians were able to hit the Pakistanis air. And finally, the 14th military site, the Pasrur radar site, which is located again in Punjab, 100 kilometers northeast of Lahore and just 50 kilometers from the Indian border. This radar site monitors Indian air activity, providing early warning for the PF bases like Chunyan and Sialkot, and because it's near to Sialkot, it also supports PF operations, including the UAVs and UCAVs, enhancing Pakistan's border and defense capabilities. So attacking Pasrur might not appear that important, but it's also an important piece in the puzzle of Pakistan's air defense, and that has also been rendered useless. The site locations also enables real-time tracking of Indian military movements, be it in Jammu and Kashmir or in Punjab, and for countering India's Western Command. This is what India has been able to hit. Again, the Chinese air defense systems of absolutely no use. So in the news you've heard about 1 or 2 Chinese air defense systems being neutralized. But if you look at these 14 places of military infrastructure across Pakistan from Skardu to Karachi, all of them in some capacity had Chinese air defense systems. So Indians essentially were successfully able to breach Pakistan and Chinese hardware in as many as 14 places, apart from the 9 terror sites we had already bombed on the night of May 2nd. Now let's address the nuclear question, and let's address it with responsibility. Pakistan, in every conflict, big or small, has always played the nuclear card. It has always blackmailed India using the nuclear card. What did India demonstrate with Operation Sindoor in 2025? Number one, it demonstrated its capacity to take out air bases simultaneously. While there are redundancies on the ground that will have to be eliminated in the wake of a nuclear war if we actually get there, what Indians would tell Pakistan and the world at large was that if Pakistan's trying to play the nuclear bluff, we have enough capacity to knock their air nuclear capacity out, all out, and buy ourselves enough window where the Indians can take appropriate action. Now, this is not a provocation for a nuclear war. This is not nudging towards a nuclear war. This is not sending the wrong message to the world. But when you are dealing with a rogue nation that uses the nuclear blackmail, this kind of deterrence, this kind of messaging is very, very important. And that is exactly what our armed forces have been able to achieve. And that has been reiterated by our Prime Minister as well, that the nuclear blackmail will not work. You look at the map from Sargodha to Karachi, forward operating bases close to Balochistan. Every single base was targeted, every single air defense system was breached, and that is the message we should go away with. While India and Pakistan were not close to a nuclear war this time, while the Kirana Hills officially were not hit with an Indian missile, India has demonstrated that capacity that where Pakistan, even if it thinks of launching a nuclear attack on India first, India has that capability to buy that window, to buy those hours where it can knock out Pakistan's entire nuclear command authority and its entire capacity to mount nuclear payloads on its fighter jet. Now let's address the question of the ceasefire understanding we have going on. Well, I would like to believe that we are in a perpetual state of war with Pakistan now, because if anything, the last week has demonstrated that it's no longer humans versus humans. Earlier, through Kashmir, through PoJK, Pakistan used to infiltrate terrorists, used to usher the infiltration of terrorists through Muzaffarabad, through the launch pads we just attacked. But now that entire equation has changed. The entire equation is now made up of variables, the hardware variables, the machine variables. Now you may say that the fancy drones, the complex drones, the expensive drones, or the air defense systems are with the Pakistan military, even though there is a strong overlap between Pakistan's military and its terror groups. But what about the smaller drones, the cheap drones, the drones that are imported from Turkey, the drones that can be mounted on a 4x4 and launched practically from everywhere, drones with a range of 3 to 10 kilometers, drones that are nano in size, less than 50 square centimeter in size. This is the future. Our air defense systems will have to evolve, our drones will evolve. Everything is now going to be about how good or bad our machines are. And this is where the next challenge lies. You have 360 days of complete peace on the border, of complete peace on the LOC. And then one fine day, there is a swarm of drone attacks or even a single drone crossing the LOC. Do we call it a ceasefire violation? These are the questions that will now be before us in the coming days. On the Indian side, however, there were a lot of rumors from Pakistan that, look, we've destroyed the S-400. China's Global Times was quick to run this headline that India's S-400 at the Adapur Air Base has been destroyed. No such thing happened. I'll give you an interesting fact. Delhi is 500 kilometers from Lahore. Not even once between May 7th and May 11th were the operations at the Indira Gandhi International Airport halted. Not even for a single hour. The Pakistani airspace activity was reduced to zero across the country, but in India, 500 kilometers away from the border, Delhi was operating as it is. The other bases in the north side, Chandigarh, Ambala, Srinagar, they also come under the Indian Air Force, so they had to be ready for deployment, and hence the commercial air activity there was very, very restricted. But Delhi, 500 kilometers away, was functioning normally. Compare it to Sargodha or compare it to Jacobabad. We hit them 350 kilometers inside and they couldn't penetrate us. Not even 20 kilometers away from the international border, not even 500 kilometers away from the international border. This tells you, be it the S-400, be it the Akash, be it the other indigenous air defense systems, they all are working perfectly. This is why it's machines versus machines now. And we have to be in a perpetual state of preparation, because now we are in a perpetual state of war with the rogue nation which has access to cheap drones. And finally, summing up India's new doctrine, the doctrine of disproportionate response. We discussed the terror sites that were hit. We discussed the military infrastructure was hit. This is unprecedented. This is unlike 2016 and 2019. In my opinion, this makes the surgical strikes and the Balakot strikes look like a friendly slap on someone's back. But that is what it is. An act of terror committed against Indians on Indian soil would be considered an act of war. And this is the message that Pakistan has to live with right now. But it's a long summer ahead of us. Pakistan, again, is a rogue nation. There is a strong overlap between its military and the terror groups it harbors. Maulana Masood Azhar has lost 10 members of his family. Terrorists in Pakistan have been given state funerals. The fight against the terrorists has become the fight for Pakistan's military. And Shehbaz Sharif, all said and done, General Asim Munir, all said and done, are unwilling to accept that they have been battered, they have been hammered by the Indian forces, the Indian government. This is the reality, the new India, the new doctrine. And this is what happened between India and Pakistan in these 5 days.